Hello, one and all. This is my recap and review of Soma Spider So What? Volume 11. And I've got to say, this volume, it was, ambitious. Let's say ambitious. Because despite this series being about our favorite Spider-Girl, she does not appear at all in this volume. I mean, okay, she has like 3 very minor appearances, but the main focus of this volume is on Julius, older brother to Shun and legendary hero. Which, I mean, is great and all. Julius is an interesting character, and I've said before that a big aspect of this series is parallel perspective, seeing the world from other characters' point of views, but I mean, it's weird. It is really, really weird to have an entire volume not focus on the freaking main character. And what's more, I mean, we know that Julius is going to die. He dies in the war against the demons, making this like a 250-page obituary for a character that we barely knew. Oh, that is depressing. That is seriously, seriously depressing. And just, honestly, this is a very hard volume to reread because, I mean, for every other volume, there was a scene I was so excited to experience all over again. In Volume 10, it was, White punching Potamus and then scaring the living daylights out of Agner with her army of spiders. Back in Volume 9, it was White defeating Wrath by teleporting him, 3 miles directly upwards. And then her big confrontation with Dee. But this volume, it had nothing. There was nothing I was really excited for. I mean, if I had to say my favorite scene would probably be, Tiva's death. Not because it's a fun, happy scene, but rather just because I think it's really well written. So, yeah, this volume, it was a bummer. It was an absolute freaking bummer to reread. And, for good reason, because our protagonist here, our new protagonist, I guess, Julius, he has not lived the happiest of lives. He was born as the son of the king's 3rd concubine, meaning he was very, very far away from the throne. But still, he lived a happy life, he was a prince, he absolutely adored his mother, who read him stories of previous heroes and their legendary exploits. And then at 7 freaking years old, he was told, hey, you're the hero. The entire fate of humanity rests on your shoulders. You are 7 freaking years old. Oh, what is wrong with the gods of this world? Seriously, what's wrong with these gods? And just to make things so much worse, a year later his younger brother Shun was born, and then his mother died almost immediately afterwards. So, yeah, that's sad. And then just make things so much worse again, the pontiff, the leader of the Word of God religion, showed up one day and said, hey, hero, we're gonna have this big war, us in Oates County versus Karen County. It's a lock. We're gonna win this 100%. Why don't you come with us so you get to see what real battle's like, so you get some actual combat experience? You won't have to fight at all. You just need to stand on the sidelines. Cool? Cool. And Julius realized way, way too late that he was being used and manipulated, because him standing on the side of Oates County basically meant that side, Oates County, was morally right. They were, the side of the heroes, while the other side, Karen County, were evil demons. They were against the very gods themselves. And so a bunch of Oates soldiers snuck out and burned their city to the freaking ground. And it was at that point Julius realized, okay, I may have underestimated what it means to actually be the hero. Also, I probably shouldn't trust the pontiff. That dude is sneaky. Seriously, seriously sneaky. And so then 2 years later, when the pontiff says, hey, you may have noticed, but a whole bunch of children have been kidnapped. Several thousand children have in fact been kidnapped by the elves, but, Julius doesn't know this. And I'm putting together a task force to, deal with the kidnappers. Want to join it? And after, everything has happened, Julius is very hesitant to say yes to the pontiff, but he can't really say no either because it would look really bad for, him as the hero and also for his country as a whole if he said no to this. And what's more, he finds out the vice commander of this task force is actually Sir Tiva, someone he knows very well because back in Karen County, Sir Tiva gave him a lot of support and encouragement and helped him get out of the funk after, accidentally causing the city to get burned down. Oh, poor Julius. Poor Julius. And Sir Tiva is in fact incredibly motivated to deal with this kidnapping organization because they murdered his son, his son's wife, and his freaking grandson. And I can say with a fairly high degree of certainty that his grandson was in fact an otherworlder, because, I mean, even though his son wasn't as strong as him, his son was still, one of the strongest of his generation, and yet he was defeated easily, very, very easily, meaning it must have been the work of the elves themselves, and the elves have only gotten involved if the person they were going after was in fact an otherworlder and not a decoy. But apparently the elves seriously messed up and accidentally killed the kid and both of his parents, so, that was bad. Especially because, this kid would have grown up in one of the best families in the freaking world. He was set for life, and because Mazoka just had to get involved, had to interfere, he ended up dying, before he even had a chance to grow up, which is very, very sad. I wonder what Potamus told her after this. So, yeah, we messed up. Or did he just, outright lie? Oh, before we got there, they were killed by bandits. Not sure. Either way, I'm sure she was very upset by that. So yeah, Julius agrees, okay, I'll join this task force. But because the task force involves, people from a bunch of different nations, it takes a very, very long time to get everyone organized. And so he has time to put together, the heroes party. First off, there is Hyrance, his childhood friend and bodyguard / assistant / whatever, which is an unusual position for him to have, given that he is the son of Duke Quarto, one of the highest ranking nobles in the entire kingdom. But, Hyrance is in kind of a weird position because he has a much older brother who already has a son, meaning the line of succession has already been set, and he is completely and utterly unnecessary. So they decide, alright, just go hang out with the hero, be his assistant or whatever. Good for him. And at first glance, Hyrance might come off as a jester, making jokes, laughing, just, seemingly not to care at all. Though this is more of an act he puts on so that people underestimate him, and he is in fact incredibly thoughtful, diligent, and sincere. Though he truly does love messing with Yana, the saint. And for good reason, I'll talk about her in a second, but seriously, half this volume is just him teasing her over and over again, to the point where, the rest of the party has to ask, hey, Hyrance, are you in love with Yana or something? Turns out he's not. He's in love with another woman who he can't be with for reasons. Very, very serious reasons. Though he doesn't actually explain what those reasons are. Apparently they're, serious and very personal. And then we have Yana, the saint, and not gonna lie, back when we first were introduced to her in volume 2 or 3, I hated her. I utterly and completely hated her. Because despite being afraid of the dark and bugs, she still insisted on following Julius and the party into the Great Elver Labyrinth and clung to his side the entire time, constantly putting him in danger. And what's more, she refused to let Julius use magic in public because he was so much better at it than she was that it made her look bad. Holy mother of God above, I despised her. And, after reading this volume, I don't hate her, but I can't really say I like her either. Basically, she is, I can't really even say incompetent, she is slightly above average. But she is the saint. She is the one person in the entire world chosen by the pontiff to stand by the hero's side. And back in, saint school, which is an incredibly rigorous program, her grades were just, like I said, mildly above average. So she was qualified to be the saint, but there were other candidates, just a year or two older than her, who were way, way more qualified than she was. Which, really raises the question, why was she picked? And for a long time, Julius and Hyrance think, okay, this girl is putting on, an act. There's no way she's this earnest. There's no way she's this honest to a fault. She's really a spy working for the pontiff. And after about 6 months of Hyrance teasing her nonstop, they realized, oh no, this is actually who she really is. She is not a spy. And I guess the pontiff just picked her to make Julius happy, to pick someone that, Julius get along with well, as a way of, basically making peace and saying, hey, I'm sorry about that massacre in Cairn County. And as for the reason why Yana is so insistent on following Julius and not letting him stand out above her, basically, she does not want to be murdered. She is very afraid that some of the other saint candidates will kill her in her sleep so they can take the position from her. And while that's unlikely, it's not entirely out of the realm of possibilities. So, yeah, she's worried. She's very, very worried. And she just has to be, at the absolute top of her game all the time. And then a little while later, Justking and Hawkins end up joining the party, and Justking is incredibly impressive. He managed to reach A rank as an adventurer while working completely solo without any party. And what's more, people even say that in a few months, a few years, he'll manage to reach freaking S rank. So good for him, very impressive. He's also a master of like 1,000 different weapons. He always has like a sword, an axe, katana, everything strapped to his body at all times. And this results in him, growing up poor. He had to basically just use whatever weapons he could find, lying around. And so he mastered all of them. And he comes off as rather cynical and pragmatic, but he has a very strong sense of justice. And then we have Hawkins, who is his slave. Yeah, that's weird. That is seriously, seriously weird. I mean, Justking never treats him as a slave and takes off the slave collar almost immediately, but throughout the rest of the series, he's constantly referred to as Justking's slave, which is very, very weird. I mean, I guess you could argue that Justking, did save his life, and what's more, having him as a slave might also be a form of self-defense, because Hawkins is kind of, a wanted man. He is known as the thief with 1,000 knives. He is basically Robin Hood. He stole from corrupt merchants and nobles and gave the money out as food to the poor. I mean, he is a hero to the people. In fact, there are actually plays about him. And that bothers him a little bit because in all those plays, the lead actor is always picked to play the thief with 1,000 knives, leading a lot of people to assume that, Hawkins is incredibly good looking. And he is, not ugly. The volume actually describes him as exceedingly ordinary and able to blend into a crowd. Which, is probably really helpful for being a thief, but at the same time, I feel like it hurts his, ego just a little bit right there. Oh, poor Hawkins. You deserve better. You really deserve better. And in combat, he fights with, knives, magical weapons. And out of combat, he is, their support class. He gets supplies, he gathers information, and he formulates plans based on that information. He is incredibly important to the hero's party. Good for him, Hawkins. I really do love you. I think you're my favorite member of this party. Hiram has his charms, but I just can't pass up on Hawkins. You are so adorable, and you are so wonderful, and I freaking love you. But anyway, though, then the task force begins its job of hunting down the human trafficking organization. And Julius really quickly realizes, oh, I'm not wanted here. Even though I am the head of the task force, they don't ask my opinion at all. They basically force me out of the room and they're coming up with these plans. And what's more, instead of, riding around in a regular carriage, they put me in this giant, fancy, gaudy carriage like I'm a rich noble out on a hunting expedition. And it just really, really hurts his pride. And what's more, it just really hurts the morale of those who see the carriage go by. Those who have had their children kidnapped are like, please save my son, save my son. And they see this gaudy carriage driving by and like, oh, we're doomed. We are absolutely freaking doomed. And the first expedition actually goes incredibly well. They're basically, just facing off against bandits, and all of these people are, literally trained soldiers, so it's a very, very easy win. Unfortunately, Julius is kept very far away from the battle, and even more unfortunately, they don't find any of the missing children in the bandits' hideouts. Apparently, some, higher force shows up every now and again, grabs the children, and then leaves and, pays the bandits for their work. And that is very upsetting. And then, when they actually get back to town, the parents are like, please tell me, where's my child? Where's my child? And the soldiers, are just kind of brushing them off like, oh, we'll give an official announcement later on. But Julius steps out and he tells the parents, we couldn't find them. I'm so sorry. We got here too late, but we are not going to stop. We will keep looking. I promise you that. And, one of the parents goes to hit him, but Julius stops him because, he tried the same thing back in Karen County. He tried to, let himself get hit over and over and over again by the grieving and angry people. And Tiva told him, you can't do that. It will just make the people feel worse after they realize, oh, I punched a child who had nothing to do with my pain or my suffering. That was probably wrong of me. And Tiva, for his part, is really doing his best to support Julius and telling everyone, hey, commanders, I think you have the wrong idea here. None of you were picked to be the hero. Julius was picked by the hero, meaning this 7-year-old, 8-year-old child at this point is more qualified than all of you. And that really makes them, think things over. And then a bit later, as they're on their way to another bandit hideout, they are hit by a surprise attack as a couple dozen archers start shooting at them from, the trees. Man, they're coming from the trees, man! And things don't really go all that well for the task force. They are, very high level, so the arrows aren't really, all that dangerous to them. But at the same time, no one actually listens all that well. Everyone's just kind of waiting for orders from their own commanders, from their own nations, instead of following the chain of command. And so Julius realizes, okay, if no one's going to do anything, I'm going to do something. He grabs a sword and just runs, screaming at the bandits. And then he stabs one, and that is his first kill. And then he just, kills again and again and again. And at a certain point, he just kind of, goes into a fugue state, like kill, kill, kill. And eventually Tiva has to shake him out and tell him, hey, you did it. You've killed all the bandits by yourself. It was terrifying and you're covered in blood. And this takes a, rather serious toll on him, but at the same time, this is the reason why Julius is so much better than Shun. He is just as stubborn. He is just as freaking stubborn as Shun is. But at the same time, he's willing to actually do what needs to be done. I mean, in the Elf Village, Shun's like, hey, you two sides, stop fighting this war. Don't do this anymore. Whereas Julius would have actually picked a side and started fighting, started swinging, and just taking down whoever he deemed to be the bad guy, because that's the only way to make peace in this exact moment. And then during the next expedition, Julius managed to convince everyone to allow him to trek through the mountains and attack the bandit camp from behind. And this goes incredibly well, and they win! Huzzah! And then Julius decides to take some time off, or Tiva kind of insists he takes some time off, and goes to see his younger brother and younger sister's appraisal ceremony. That's right, the scene back from volume freaking 1, people! And it is awkward. It is very, very awkward, because the kingdom is in kind of a weird state right now. I mean, like I said earlier, Julius and Shun are the sons of the king's third concubine, meaning they are very far away from the throne, and the person next in line is Silas, the son of the true queen. Unfortunately, though, Silas is ordinary, utterly and completely ordinary. He's not bad, he's not incompetent, but he's just, perfectly average in every way. And, I mean, Julius is the hero, so he can't really become the king, but Shun, I mean, the brother of the hero, him becoming king, that could, be good for this kingdom. And there's a lot of people who want that to happen because basically the kingdom is separated into two factions. Those who are close to the true queen, and those who are not close to the true queen. And the not close faction very much wants someone other than the true queen's son to become the next king, and Shun is looking pretty good for that position. I mean, he is a child prodigy, gifted far, far beyond his age. I mean, because he's a reincarnator, but no one else knows that. And then as the appraisal ceremony, it's found out that he has the skill Divine Protection, meaning that he is loved and favored by the gods. At that point, a lot of nobles are thinking, oh, this could be next king, this could be next king, this could be next king. And that creates a lot of tension in the room, especially when Shun then grabs the daughter of the Duke, a Duke who's neutral, not on either side, and drags her to another room. Which is, wrong in so many ways, but in the eyes of the true queen and a lot of the nobles, what Shun is doing right there is trying to win over the Duke to the, non-true queen side, and basically shifting the power dynamic in the kingdom. Yeah, Shun is so utterly, utterly unlucky. It's actually hilarious just how badly he manages to mess up right here. And just to make the situation so much more complicated, shortly after Shun drags Kanata off to the side room, Sue breaks into that side room, latches onto Shun, and accuses Kanata of trying to steal her brother from her. So yeah, that's complicated. Very, very complicated. And a whole lot of guards get called, and, basically, Julius has to step in and literally forcibly separate them. Oh, poor Shun, poor Shun, and poor Julius, and honestly, poor everybody in that scene. And then after Julius is done dealing with all of that, he gets a letter telling him that Sir Tiva has been killed. Bummer. I mean, I said before, this might be my favorite scene in the volume, but not for, good, positive, happy reasons. Not like, oh, it's such a funny scene, but rather there's such an elegantly written clashing of wills. Because we have Sir Tiva, who finds out, hey, a child was seen being dragged into a cave, and he rushes off to save the child to finally be on time, to finally not be too late. And in his rush, he doesn't even stop to get permission. And if he had, he probably would have survived, because that child was in fact not only another worlder, but also a spy for the Pontiff. A spy with a unique skill, unlimited telephone, that allows him to communicate even through the elves' impenetrable barrier, meaning that this finally was a chance for the Pontiff to have a spy on the inside of the elf village, to finally know what's going on inside there. And this was a really great plan. Sir Tiva just royally messed it up by charging into the cave and trying to, deal with the kidnappers himself. Though, even though this wasn't actually part of the Pontiff's plan, it actually ended up working on his favor because Potamus was well aware this was a trap. He knew going into this, okay, it's definitely weird there's an otherworlder here in the Holy Kingdom right under the Pontiff's nose. This must be a trap. And so when Sir Tiva and his soldiers attacked him, he thought, okay, this is it. This is all the Pontiff can muster. This is all the force he has at his disposal right now. And, the protagonist has a habit of seriously underestimating his opponent, and as a result of this attack, he didn't question the other worlder and realize, hey, this kid has a weird skill. He might be a spy. So, Surtiva, your sacrifice was absolutely not in vain, and I really appreciate it. The world really appreciates it. And like I said, it was such a clashing of wills. The pontiff wanted to stash a spy inside the elf village. Potamus wanted to kidnap this child and deal with whatever trap the pontiff was planning. And Surtiva just wanted to rescue this freaking child. And it all just clashed and resulted in this insane madness. And the results are actually very interesting because not only did this, motivate Julius to become even better, to fight even harder, but also it was said this volume that Sir Tiva was put in charge of raising the Sword King's son. He was put in charge of raising freaking Hugo. And while Hugo was always kind of a brat even back in Japan, Sir Tiva is incredibly gifted at raising children, at dealing with, obnoxious and obstinate people. And I think if he had managed to survive this, there's a very good chance that he could have raised Hugo into being a proper king, into being someone who wouldn't try to murder his classmates just because they are better than he is, to become someone who doesn't think the entire world belongs to him. And I would love to see a parallel timeline where Sir Tiva actually lives and raises Hugo up properly. Though honestly, it's also possible that Hugo would just stab him to death in his sleep. Yeah, Hugo sucks. Hugo seriously sucks. And then Julius goes to the funeral for Sir Tiva, and he absolutely blames himself. He thinks, okay, if I didn't go to the appraisal ceremony, if I didn't leave the battlefield, Sir Tiva would still be alive. And Elder Ronan is actually rather annoyed by that sentiment, so much so he actually ends up fighting Julius, and even while seriously holding back, he still manages to very easily kick his butt, showing him that yes, Julius, you are strong by human standards, but you are weak. You are so utterly weak. You are not even at the level of Sir Tiva, and if you had been by his side, you would have died as well, so there's nothing you could have done, just accept your own weakness. Which is a very depressing lesson, also one that, Julius absolutely does not learn. He promises right after this to outlive his master and not challenge any foes who are beyond him. He breaks his promise many times. He breaks his promise so many freaking times. But anyway, though, the task force has their final mission. Even though they still have absolutely no idea where all these kidnapped children are going, this is the last major base of bandits. Whoever's in charge of all of this, whoever's working in the shadows, they have seemingly completely disappeared. So, yeah, that's a bit depressing for everyone involved, but on the bright side, when they actually raid the base, because, like I said, the people up top have disappeared, there's still a whole bunch of kidnapped people in the base, and they're actually able to return these children back to their parents, and that makes everyone feel just a little bit better, and they have this huge banquet to celebrate, and everybody's happy, and then Julie decides, okay, I have my party here, I have Hawkins, I have Justking, I have Yana, I have Hirance, let's go, explore the world, let's go save people! Huzzah! And the first enemy they end up facing is a Bolera, a giant tentacle monster who likes torturing and eating young women. So, yeah, that's disturbing. Honestly, this whole next chapter is really disturbing, as it goes heavy into discussions about sex and just, oh god, poor Yana. She tries to explain, oh no, sex is dirty and evil and corrupt, but intercourse between a man and woman in love is sacred and holy. Which, makes Hawkins literally spit out his drink, and then, basically forces Hirance to say, oh, well then if you're the saintess, please educate us about this holy endeavor that is sex. Oh, Yana, just poor Yana. This whole scene is just honestly painful to read, and like I said, it just feels very out of context in this series. It feels like it doesn't really fit in with the rest of it. White is essentially asexual, more or less, so sex has never really been a major topic other than, Shu and his party. And even then, it was just saying that Favorun has no interest in humans because she's a dragon, and Kanata has no interest in girls because she's a girl. So, interesting, I guess. Anyway, though, Hawkins and Justking do actually give up 2 really good points before this chapter comes to a close. Justking reminds Yana that Julius is the hero. He's a person in a very important position, and he should probably get, some experience with women, otherwise they'll manage to trick him and manipulate him and even try to assassinate him, And that prediction definitely comes true before the end of this volume, whereas Hawkins takes on a more gentle approach, reminding Yana, there are some real nice ladies who happen to make their living in that sort of business. And that is especially true. I mean, a lot of women end up in that business because, poverty, disease, all sorts of awful things. And Yana criticizing them for being, evil and corrupt is, wrong. Very, very wrong. And then after the Bolera, they end up facing off against a freaking phoenix. A giant, probably immortal monster who every couple decades ends up flying from one volcano to another and destroying everything in its path. And when instead they're facing the phoenix, all they're really doing is evacuating the people who are in the direction of the phoenix path. And while that's happening, they're also trying to gather phoenix feathers, because if you're holding a phoenix feather when you die, you're instantly saved and come back to life. Huzzah! That's what ends up saving Hirons down the road when White apparently murders the entire hero's party. And this is going fairly well until they come across one guy who's like, I refuse to leave my house. My wife and I built together, and that's all I have left of her. And Julius, instead of basically knocking the guy out and dragging him away, decides, all right, let's save this one random village. And the plan goes badly. The plan goes very, very badly because of a sudden gust of wind. They end up basically shooting ash into the phoenix face, and it attempts to murder Julius. But Hirons manages to, leap in front of him and take the full blast from the phoenix and is very, very nearly murdered. He's like an inch away from death. But thankfully they manage to save him and they even get a phoenix feather for their effort. And Julius basically says, yeah, I know that I messed up here, but the thing is, I would absolutely do it again because I'm the hero and I can't leave people in need, which, like I said before, he is better than Shun, but at the same time, he is still just overwhelmingly stubborn in some of the worst possible ways. And from there, Julius and his party end up going to the same village beneath the Missing Mountains where White and Ariel stayed for a bit. The same village that, basically tried to face off against Wrath and ended up losing so overwhelmingly badly. And while there, they even see two young adventurers collecting herbs. Two very, very familiar-looking adventures. And they were summoned here by Ariel, the second apprentice to Elder Ronant, who has become rather well developed since last time we saw her, last volume before that. And she's even become a mage of the Imperial Court. She's basically one of the strongest mages in the Empire, despite only being like 15, 16 years old at this point. So good for her! Anyway, though, they're told that a whole bunch of demons are trying to cross the border because they are so afraid of the Demon Lord and they don't want to die in this pointless war. And all the refugees who are caught are, basically instantly murdered because humans can't trust demons. Of course they can't. But one of them was holding a very interesting note basically saying, hey, humans, and more importantly the hero, you want to join us in trying to overthrow the Demon Lord? And this is a trap. This is very obviously a trap, but still they have to, check it out just to make sure it really is a trap. But anyway, though, then they go to the middle of the woods, and they meet Sanatoria and Huey, or as White calls them, Miss Boobs and Shota. Oh, I really do love White's nicknames. And that, nickname is actually fairly accurate, Miss Boobs, because even though Oral is very well developed, she doesn't hold a candle to Miss Boobs, who is able to distract Julius long enough for her to poison him with deadly poison attacks. Something that's actually described here as being like legendarily dangerous, which is particularly funny because White managed to get that skill like in volume 1 or 2. Oh, she is broken. She is so overwhelmingly broken. And they all need to run away, and, Julius is fairly messed up by the poison. In fact, it's so bad he even starts to hallucinate. I mean, he must be hallucinating. There's no way there could be dead men strung up with white thread like grotesque decorations while a woman in pure white stands in the middle. That's crazy. Oh, that'd be crazy. There's no way that's happening. And then we get a chapter from Sanatoria's point of view where she explains that she and Huey are basically trying to earn points with Ariel because they are absolutely in the freaking doghouse. They are part of the plan to overthrow her, along with Workus and Nerio. And Workus, was caught and committed suicide. And Nerio, that was interesting. Because when he was replaced by Black as the 9th commander, they suddenly heard a wet, crunching sound. And they realized very quickly, and to their absolute horror, that Ariel had just eaten Nerio in front of them. And this left a, very permanent scar on their minds to the point where they can barely eat without thinking of that horrible, horrible, wet, crunching sound. And just to make it all the more terrifying, Ariel then responded with, "Now who will I have to replace next?" Holy mother of God above. And if they couldn't get any more afraid, while they're sitting there in the freaking woods in the middle of nowhere, Ariel shows up with her throne. She appears before them with her freaking goddamn throne. Holy mother of God, that's terrifying. And she basically explains that she doesn't want the hero dead quite yet. So that's why she had to interfere with their plan to, take him out. And that's why she murdered a bunch of their soldiers. Her own freaking soldiers, simply to, stop them from killing the hero. Holy mother of God, that is next level terrifying. And as for how she knew about their plans, White told her. And this further terrifies both them because White is apparently the Demon Lord's eyes and ears. And while the Ninth Commander, Black, showed up with a bunch of soldiers no one had ever seen before, White's army is made up of soldiers everybody knows. They have names, they have faces, and yet they look completely different than when they first joined her army. And are they being brainwashed? Are they being hypnotized? What is White doing to these people? And I'm very excited to talk about that in my next video, or maybe the video after that. White and the 10th Army are so freaking amazing. I love them so much. And then sometime later, Julius goes back home, and he's greeted by his older brother, Destined, and Julius gives him a magic sword. In fact, a magic sword forged by Wrath, because Elder Ronan had a whole bunch of these things at his disposal, and he just, really didn't want them anymore, because he knows they were forged by the monster that, killed his friend, and they were forged under some very dark, horrible conditions. So he basically just gave them out to Julius to give out to whoever he wants them. Julius gave one to his father, one to his brother, he even has two set aside for Shun and Sue, and he outfitted his entire party, with the exception of Yana, with magic swords forged by Wrath, which, I know Wrath isn't particularly happy about humans using the swords he forged for goblins, but at the same time, I feel like there must be a nerdy side of Wrath thinks to himself, the entire hero's party are using swords I personally forged? Okay, you know what? That's pretty cool. That's actually pretty cool. I don't know. I would be pretty hyped by that. Even after everything he's gone through, I would still be kind of hyped by that. But anyway, though, then Destined tells Julius about a rumor he heard from protagonist, which, massive, massive red flag right there, about a holy sword hidden somewhere in the castle at the bottom of the staircase seems to lead to nowhere. And as it turns out, that rumor is true, and that is the sword of the hero, guarded by the light dragon Byakuya. And this is a sword so powerful, it can even kill a god, but it can only be used once. And Julius basically says, nah, I don't need it. Which is, certainly an interesting response to a dragon offering you a holy sword. But he explains that, just killing one person won't save the world, won't change anything. If I were to kill an evil king, that still leaves the whole, kingdom that needs to be taken care of. So I don't want this power for myself. And that seems to be the right answer to the question as the, dragon turns himself into the sword and puts himself in Julius's hands. I guess it's one of those things where it's only those who don't want to use his power are worthy of actually wielding it. That would make a certain level of sense, I guess. Anyway, though, the next day, Julius comes across Potamus, and he instinctively thinks to himself, that man is no friend of mine, that man is an enemy, that man is freaking evil, which, hey, he's right! Good for you, Julius! Oh, I love that. And he basically decides that, okay, we need to do something about that dude right freaking now, because he's planning something. I know he's planning something. And then the final scene is him meeting with Shun and Sue right before going to war. The war he never returns from. And he can tell right away that Sue is acting very strange. She's barely responding, and eventually she runs out of the room on the verge of tears. And, Julius convinces Shun to go after her, promising him, don't worry, I'll be back. Next time we'll spend a whole lot of time together. Oh, poor Julius, poor Shun. Neither of them know that, he is very, very close to death at this point. And then we get a final page spread, which I so love because it's essentially the same thing. It's the Julius and Ariel saying literally exactly the same freaking thing. I don't want to fight, but there are times when one has no other choice. For the sake of true worldwide peace, here we go. I will fight in order to win peace for this world with my own hands. And that is both Ariel and Julius at the same time, because they're both, literally trying to save the world. While Julius might see Ariel as this evil, horrible dictator just killing people for the fun of it, she's, actually trying to save the world. She is one of the few people actually trying to save the world. And Julius, I mean, I love what he's trying to do here, but if he actually wins, if he actually manages to stop Ariel, that basically means he's dooming the entire world to die. And this honestly just makes everything he's fighting for feel kind of, I don't know, just wrong or off or just diminished somehow, because he is actually on the wrong side of history right here. Even though he's trying to do so much good, he is on the wrong side of things. That is just so sad. So sad. But before I go, this volume wasn't actually fully focused on June. There were in fact 10 very short chapters from the point of view of Sophia, because, yeah, I mean, she starts off really freaking bored. White, Mira, and Ariel are all off trying to save the freaking world, and when she demands they pay attention to her, White sets up a written training regimen for her to follow. Holy mother of God, I love White. And when she says no to that, they decide, all right, we'll send you off to boarding school. We'll send you off to freaking boarding school where you have to deal with a whole bunch of, 8, 9, 10-year-old children, while you have the mind of, well, at least a 16-year-old, but, probably like a 26-year-old with all of your life experience. So that's not a particularly fun place for her. And to make matters worse, the puppet spiders are sent along with her to basically tie her up anytime she tries to escape. Oh, poor Sophia. Though Sophia does end up kind of being the villain of these chapters. Basically, she meets two students, Goody Two Shoes and Miss Class Rep. Obviously, those aren't their real names, but that's how she refers to them for these chapters. And Goody Two Shoes comes off as, oh, I'm so nice, I'm supportive, I'm so nice to everybody, but he is secretly a jerk. He compares grades with everyone to make sure that he is at the top of the pecking order, that he is the best student in every class. And Miss Class Rep is his fiance, and she actually always tries to do a little bit worse than him to make sure that, he doesn't feel inferior to her. And when Sophia shows up, she beats Goody Two Shoes again and again and again, and this seriously bothers him, but eventually he starts to fall in love with her, which, like I said, is a bit of a problem, because he's engaged to Miss Class Rep. And Sophia starts acting very, very strange in these chapters. The puppet spiders give her a bone to chew on, and she starts getting addicted to their chewy texture, and eventually starts craving dragon bones for some reason. I have a lot of questions about that. Anyway, though, then as things progress, Goody Two Shoes keeps on, touching her hair, trying to grab her time and time again. And the puppet spiders warn her that men are animals, and that she shouldn't let him touch her at all. And unfortunately for Sophia, this is when she starts going through, I guess, vampire puberty, as she starts thirsting for blood, though she promises not to touch any of the boys at her school. A promise she breaks very, very quickly, as she starts drinking from all the boys, as it makes her and them very, very happy. And now they're starting to worship her, which, yeah, it makes sense. When you drink someone's blood, you're probably gonna, charm them somehow. And as for Miss Class Rep, well, she had her engagement annulled, and she was chased out of the academy, which Sophia is, pretty happy about. But White, not so much. White finds out what Sophia's doing, and she is very, very angry at her behavior. So she curses Sophia, forcing her to call her master. And what's more, Sophia has absolutely no idea what she did wrong in this moment, which is sad. So overwhelmingly sad. Sophia's, a very bad person, a very, very bad person. Though White kind of, overreacts a little bit, as she strips her naked, ties her up with string, and then leaves her hanging there overnight, which feels wrong to me. That feels like a bit of an excessive punishment. I don't know about that. Thankfully, though, this isn't the last time we see Miss Class Rep, and I'm so excited to talk about her again down the road. But anyway, though, those are my thoughts on this volume. Like I said, probably my least favorite volume of the series, but not overwhelmingly bad. The characters are interesting. I love the, additional world building and stuff. But next volume, volume 12, is one of my absolute favorites. Seriously. I mean, this volume had 3 narrators. Volume 6 had 6 narrators. Volume 12, every single chapter, besides the first and last one, are from the point of view of a different character. All of them looking at this war through their own eyes, their own perspective. It is so amazing. And I'm so excited to talk about it. I'm so excited to talk about it. But please let me think down below. How does Julius compare to Shun? What do you think of this volume? What do you think the author just, taking this massive risk of having an entire volume basically without the main character? Well, that's kind of insane, but, so is writing an entire series where the main character is a talking spider. Oh, I love it. I freaking love it. But let me know what you think down below. And until next time, peace!